So if you guys remember about, I don't know, 2 months ago, actually it was 2 months ago yesterday when, to the exact day that the rebellion in Russia happened, Prozagin, or Pringles as he's jokingly referred to, who was the head of Wagner, I guess is how you say it. He was the head guy that was running it, and him and thousands of his troops were headed for Moscow. And because the whole Russian military is basically deployed in Ukraine and along other areas like the border with China and stuff, there was like nobody to oppose them. They got, I think it was 80, 100 kilometers outside of Moscow and stopped. But on the way there, their air defense systems that they had shot down, I think it was two attack helicopters that were, going after their column of people. And then there was also I think it was an electronic warfare plane that was returning from Ukraine that they also shot down. So they killed a bunch of Russian military pilots. And so he met with Putin. All of his top lieutenants met with Putin. They worked out a deal. And he's like, we'll go to Belarus, then we'll go back to Africa. And there's a video of Putin, and I've shared this on my Twitter at Coach Corey Wayne, and this is from a few years ago, where he's like, the reporter's asking Putin, he's like, what's the one thing that you don't forgive, or that's just the worst thing anybody could ever do? He's like, betrayal. And if you look at what has happened to any of Putin's political opponents, it's like the one guy, I guess he was former Federal Security Services guy that I think was running it. He had left Russia, was in the UK, and then he went to lunch with like two former FSB agents that he knew. And then after he finished lunch, I think he had coffee or something with them. After he ate, he started feeling really sick. And then when he went in the hospital, what they found out is they used a radioactive isotope that it can wash off your hands. It won't penetrate your membranes or anything. It's very safe to handle, but they put it in his drink, and when you ingest it, it's like they radiation poison him, which was like one of the worst ways you can die because it like liquefies your organs, your
terrible.
blood vessels
Jesus.
just rip open, and you bleed to death internally. And so this guy just had an excruciatingly painful death in front of the whole world, and that's part of his message. Anybody that crosses him, dies very publicly. And so Prozagin, his men used the air defense systems that they had to shoot down, I think it was two Russian helicopters, attack helicopters, and then one electronic warfare, like an AWACS type of plane, shot them down and obviously killed all the pilots that were flying those. And so, yes, typically what he does is like when he takes off, he has two private jets, and he's on one of the jets, and there's decoys or other people in the other one. I guess in Africa, one of the jets had been shot down. It was the one that he was not on. Well, apparently yesterday, even one of the stewardess was saying that there were people doing unusual repairs to the plane that he actually ended up flying on. And what I've heard in the West, what was in the news yesterday was that they used air defense missiles to shoot his private jet down. And Putin's he bides his time. He made everybody think that they were safe. He let them feel safe. And literally 2 months to the day of his rebellion, or as he called it, the March for Justice, when they were, because he wanted Valery Gazmarov and Shogu, the other guy, the two top military guys, he wanted them ousted. And these were personal friends of Putin, and Putin obviously sided with them. And so it's pretty ironic that 2 months to the day, Pringles, or Prozagin, I always butcher his name, but his private jet gets shot down by an air-to-air missile, with an air defense system. In other words, that was like his way of getting revenge. In other words, his guys were responsible for killing the Russian pilots, and so they used the same weapon to shoot down his private jet. You can see the video on Twitter as it sounded like the engines were still running, but I did see one picture of the debris, and it looked like there were holes in it, which would be because when a missile gets, has a proximity fuse, so when it flies next to a vehicle or a plane or a missile, whatever, it explodes and sends, shrapnel tungsten or some other kind of real hard dense metal and perforates it, like the that plane that was shot down in Ukraine, I don't know what, 10 years ago, whatever it was, 15 years ago, by their air defenses, and they reassembled it, and you can see the front of the plane where the pilots were was full of all these little holes from the air defense missile exploding right outside the plane when it was in flight. And but some of the other debris I saw, there was no evidence of shrapnel hitting it. So, but I did see one piece of metal that was perforated like it had been hit with an air defense missile. And again, that's what people in the West were saying, that it was what, and that would make sense because it's a very public. I mean, he shot him down, or was it St. Petersburg, I think it was. So two jets flew off, and of course the one he was in was the one that got shot down, and the other one quickly landed after that, or maybe it proceeded on.
Yeah, they're pretty deep in Russian airspace.
Yeah, so that's his message. He's just saying, again, betrayal is the one thing Putin never forgives, and so he let him think he was safe, and so he starts moving around the country thinking, hey, all's forgiven, everything's great, and then he shoots his ass down in the air very publicly. And so Putin also went on TV, because I guess one of the reporters asked him about today, and he had a few nice things to say about him, but he was like, well, we'll just let the investigation run and see what happens. And then the Wagner guys and their Telegram channels have basically been saying, hey, if it turns out that he was shot down, it's like, we're coming for Putin. We're coming for you. Yeah. So, and the Wagner guys were some of their best troops that the Russians had. They were the most highly motivated. A lot of them were former Spetsnaz guys, and they know how to fight. And even the Ukrainians said, the Wagner guys versus regular Russian military were way better than the regular Russian military. So that was 25 of their best troops that got taken off the battlefield. And so now the speculation is a lot, because I guess it was all of his top, the guy that founded Wagner, he was on the plane. He was, Pringle's top lieutenant. And it was like the top echelon. I guess all of them were on, or most of them were on one plane. And so they're all dead now. But there's a lot of those mercenaries who are like, we're coming for you. So
kind of leaves a big power.
So now, so there'll probably be a lot more assassinations because some of those people went into government. They're all going to be kind of marked. So anybody that's a real danger to Putin's regime will just be falling out of a window,
like
or
secret police time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's going to be interesting. And as far as a war effort, that's not good for the war effort, because he had a lot of. Prigozhin had a lot of support among the Russian people.
It's not hard. It's hard to win a war when you're starting to deal with a civil war at the same time.
Yes. So the West is obviously
a lot of the people seem to get behind Wagner too from those videos. But so it'd be interesting to see what happens, because if they're done with the war, that's an interesting thing will happen in the next month or two to see. Yeah, I had a feeling though he was going to take out Pringles.
Yeah,
I had a feeling. People were saying, oh, maybe he faked his death. I don't think he faked his death. I think
it's possible, because there's no positive ID on the body yet. There were reports that they positively identified. I mean, I saw one of the bodies of somebody. It might have been one of the pilots. I couldn't tell because the head was all mangled and smashed, and
it's pretty eviscerated.
He was
hard to tell.
He was like hamburger meat basically, and his leg was all up here by his head. And there was a account that I follow called Darth Putin. It's kind of a parody account. And he said the height at which Prigozhin fell from the sky was equal to how much he pissed, or the height of how much he pissed me off, or something, something like that. It's a pretty funny account.
Yeah, I've been seeing a lot of memes and stuff. I saw one in the Wagner Telegram group. They posted the picture of him, oh, he died and stuff, telling all the Wagner people he had an anime book in his hand on his desk. It was actually really funny. And then another one where it's that, the Avatar person where he's falling out of the plane. It's just a gif of someone falling out of a plane, and it was oh, Pringles today.
Another one I saw was pretty funny was because the Ukrainians were making jokes when they started being able to penetrate the Russian air defenses, and the Russians, because there was communications, they're like, what's going on with the air defense? Why isn't the air defense doing something for the planes the Ukrainians are flying, or the cruise missiles, or whatever was hitting the drones that were hitting them? And so this joke and this meme was what air defense doing? And so one of the memes that I saw was Prigozhin sitting in a seat in his private jet, and then they drew like a like a missile coming towards them, and the caption was, "What air defense doing?" As it's about to hit his plane. It's pretty funny, pretty savage.
Yeah. All right.
But it's all good for Ukraine. I mean, it's like these are things that are not good for the Russian states.
Yeah, no.
It looks good for Putin personally, but now the majority of the Wagnerites realizing that Putin didn't keep his word, and he broke his agreement. And on top of that, he murdered him. I saw also a video of Putin's motorcade rushing back to Moscow right after it happened, because they were worried about retaliation, because all these Wagner guys are on Telegram saying they're basically going to kill Putin. He's pissed them off now. Now they're coming for him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, we live in interesting times.
Yes, may you live in interesting times.